This is TWiT.
We have gathered together to mourn the passing of Apple computers.
Again.
Man, there was a lot of Schadenfreude was thick in the air this week when Wednesday, Apple's Tim Cook issued a letter saying, I'm sorry, but, we said we were going to have $92 billion in revenue. It's only going to be $84 billion in revenue.
We've gone from being a huge cash machine to a slightly smaller cash machine.
It did hurt their stock price. They were a $1 trillion company in August. Their market cap, as of the last time I checked, $700 billion.
Which is
only the fourth largest company in the world. You cover this stuff for Crunchbase.
Yeah.
I think that there's some, and everybody, including, of course, John Gruber, and it's funny, coming out of retirement because he couldn't resist it, MJ Siegler had to cover this and what the letter meant. They parsed it line by line. But give us the overview, Alex.
Well, for a long time, Apple has done a fantastic job at maintaining increased profitability despite seeing its kind of unit volume numbers stop to grow. And they did that by pushing up ASPs, or average selling prices, across their device lines.
And expanding into new territories like China.
Exactly. And then all that stopped working all of a sudden. They had a problem in the Chinese market. They didn't see as many upgrades as they thought they were going to. So revenue will be far lower than expected. Apple will still make a ton of money. They still have almost $250 billion in cash. So the company's not going anywhere, but everyone's now quite concerned about growth. And the bigger story here that kind of fits on top of the Apple bit is that if China's slowing down for Apple, what does that mean for other brands that sell into the market, luxury brands, other electronics brands, and also what does it mean for the global macroeconomic situation? So there's an Apple story, a China story, and a broader economic story. But Apple's now only worth, I just looked, $703.6 billion, so they're definitely doomed. No doubt.
There's an even bigger story, which is that, since Apple has been driven by iPhone's profits, sales, revenue, et cetera, there was always going to be a plateau and a decline of some kind because there's only so many people are going to pay for premium phones. And a lot of people are snidely saying, oh, the whole reason is that the phones are too expensive. Just lower the price of the phones. That's not going to do it either. That's not going to help the revenue, certainly. And so it's just, I've been talking about this for a couple of years.
This was going to happen.
There's
no way around.
This is why I've been predicting big new businesses like the self-driving car, like maybe they need to make Apple Pay cross-platform, something like that. They have to do something because phones aren't going to take them into the future on the same trajectory.
Apple hasn't created a significant new product since the iPad.
Well,
I mean, there's
earbud
been
things,
the Apple
Watch,
Watch,
a pair of headphones,
the AirPods.
Oh, come on, the Watch. It's a toy.
How much of Apple's revenue is watch-based? 5%, 4%, 3%? I mean, it's
even less AirPods-based.
Well, I bought
that's
two pairs of
partly-
AirPods.
Well, I bought 3 because I keep losing them. But partly that's because it's dwarfed by the success of the iPhone. I mean, really, this is a problem every company would love to have, which is such a massively successful single product that it powers revenue for years, makes you a hugely valuable company. And it's always a problem because then you need a successor, a follow-up. And Apple actually has had a number of lives. I mean, if you think about it, they've had, the Apple II, and then the Mac was a failure, but at least it was a failure, but the Mac was a failure. Then they managed to make the Mac a success. Then the iPod in the early 2000s, that was a huge success.
Yep.
So they have managed year after year to come up with a hit, but it has been a long time since they've come up with it. And partly that's because there's been nothing ever in the world as successful as the iPhone.
Well, the talk is they're going to move to services, and then Apple's going to stop selling increased unit volume.
Steve Cook said.
Yeah.
Well, Steve Cook is probably a good guy to ask about what Apple will do. The question is, how fast can they make that transition? Because they're not going to win the productivity wars. You've got Google and Microsoft there really butting heads. They're not going to win the cloud storage wars or the cloud computing wars. So where are they going to find a home in services that they can really expect a lot of long-term revenue growth, especially at a time in which App Store revenue cuts are under attack? You have the Fortnite App Store is going to take 12%. Apple wants 30%. It feels an archaic, large
Microsoft has
number.
already said they're willing to go down to 85%. They're willing to take 15% from some developers as well.
Brilliant. Microsoft makes money other ways. Apple needs that revenue stream to keep growing. So I don't know what's going to happen with them in the short term.
It puts them in a little bit of a bind if they're going to rely on services. And self-driving cars, augmented reality, some of the other things Apple's talked about aren't
These are
anywhere near ready.
5-year down the line projects.
Yeah.
We're not even close to being ready yet. Yeah. And in the meantime, they said in their last quarterly financial results, we're not actually going to report on units shipped anymore, just on revenues, which was basically a sign that, we're just going to be relying on jacking up the price and profit taking.
Well,
And the existing phones
Another
are good
way
enough.
of
There's no
spinning
reason
it
to
is
upgrade.
saying that the unit sales are not really what's driving income going forward. They're flat. What we're going to take a look at is how much money we make per customer. And I think that's not an unreasonable thing to do. A lot of companies do it. Microsoft doesn't break down unit sales. Google doesn't break down unit sales. It is maybe, especially in this new world for Apple, more appropriate to look at revenue per customer.
Well,
But look, we knew Apple was going to. I have to say, a lot of this is just Schadenfreude. Oh, a $1 trillion company. We'll show you. That's what we do. We build people up to knock them down. That's kind of the way it is.
I mean, we're not going to solve human nature on this show, but we can at least understand that it's
We
part
can
of
try.
this. We can
Yeah.
try.
It is part of it.
I do have a philosophy degree.
So there's a legitimate. So you were right. Celebrate. Take a victory lap, Mike Elgin. Apple's been facing this problem for a couple of years, and they have yet to come up with a successor. I've heard people say this is Tim Cook's fault. He hasn't come up with a follow-up. You even kind of implied that because Apple hasn't had a.
okay, he's not quite Scully levels of bad. He's very good at keeping the business running and
making it
an efficient
profitable.
way. No, he's a great operations guy, but he's not an innovations guy. And Johnny Ive appears to have basically
I
given
think
up.
he's retired.
He's semi-retired now.
Right. So cashing checks is a full-time job.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
this is the innovator's dilemma. This is the classic dilemma for all companies, especially tech companies. It's hard to reinvent yourself many times, and Apple's done it. But
Apple's
maybe
done it
this-
more than most.
More than most.
One thing we should all look inside ourselves and question is how invested are we in the success of this corporation? I mean, yes, they're iconic. Yes, Steve Jobs' career was amazing. Yes, they've impressed us. Yes, we've all been Apple fans at some point or another, but it's a corporation.
I haven't.
Come on, why? I mean,
That's the problem, though. I think a lot of Apple fans really do have an investment.
It's about identity.
An emotional investment.
It's about identity.
Yeah. And Apple's been good at capitalizing on
There's-
that.
but
They
there's a
became a
limited number
brand, a fashion brand.
yeah.
There is a limited number of people with both the passion and the money to pay the Cupertino idiot tax again and again and again every year.
I do love
Calm
their
down.
building.
Stop calling me an idiot on air.
Well, I just bought a Pixel 3. I moved the iPhone to the Pixel 3. And, Google is selling a fraction of the Pixel phones that Apple is selling iPhones. They're probably losing money on it. It's still a great phone.
Apple
So
sells more phones
everything's
in a
gonna be
month
fine.
than Google sold all year.
Yeah.
But one thing that's caught my eye during this entire brouhaha was how we're behind talking about this now. If you look at global smartphone shipments over the last couple of years, they've been
This has
flat.
been coming.
We should have been expecting this.
We were.
Well,
we all were.
I mean, but I don't think
I've been
we were-
saying this for years.
Okay,
so
Mike's been
suddenly.
saying it for years.
I mean, it feels sudden.
Yeah.
I don't think we're shocked that there was a plateau to smartphone sales. There's a limited number of people who can afford them. But I feel like this conversation wasn't as concrete as it should have been. We should have been more honest about this. But I mean, one problem that we have is that the old iPhones are so damn good. Or dang good. Sorry, I apologize, everyone. Like my 7 Plus that I still have, I'm going to keep it till it dies. Because
My
why would I
mom
ever change it?
took advantage. This is one of the factors Tim Cook mentioned in his letter. Took advantage of the battery replacement.
Yeah.
$29. He said we got more people than we thought would do that, and that those people did not upgrade. She calls her iPhone 6 her beloved iPhone 6.
Oh. Yeah.
Does not want to change it. She likes having a headphone jack.
Exactly.
The new battery made it as fast as it ever was.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the iPad problem that they've had. The iPads are so durable and long-lasting. It's like, who needs a new one? It's really not that different. And with that battery replacement, it was so inexpensive. It's such a no-brainer. It kind of turned iPhones into iPads because that battery was the thing that started
Right.
killing you after a couple of years. You
Right.
know? And so, yeah.
And that does raise the issue if Apple did that on purpose, because Apple was slowing down phones. They got caught, but they were slowing down phones with older batteries.
But here again is an unmitigated benefit to consumers and the environment, because the
Yes,
fewer
exactly.
phones that are manufactured, the better it is for the
These are not
Less
recyclable.
e-waste and the rest of it.
So this battery thing is a good thing for Apple to lose money on it and have trouble partly because of that. So what?
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
So you're saying if Apple becomes, say, IBM in a decade, so what?
So what?
It's still a massive money-making machine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as you say, people are replacing their batteries. And also, Tim Cook blamed China a little bit on this, and I was kind of skeptical. And then I talked to friends out there, and Apple is now becoming, in fact, buying any American technology in China is almost seen as disloyal in some circles.
This is the new backlash.
Yeah.
Remember, in fact, this happened New Year's Eve. The Huawei PR team that tweeted New Year's greetings, not from a Huawei phone, but from an iPhone,
Yeah.
and got busted. And 2 employees got demoted because of it, because it's seen as disloyal.
Yeah.
It's not merely, your company's mad at you. The Chinese people thought of it as disloyal.
And
right,
you were
to
saying
use
we're
an
coming
iPhone.
up to peak smartphone. Huawei released that letter, and they're saying, no, we're expecting 30% increase in smartphone sales because they're not hyper
Well,
expensive.
partly what's eating Apple's lunch is the very inexpensive but very high quality Chinese
If you're willing to
phones.
pay half the cost and get 90% of the functionality, it's a no-brainer.
No one needs Face ID, really. No one needs emojis. No one needs...
I don't have any of those, and I've never missed them once.
No.
Maybe I'm getting old.
Do you
but,
miss
like,
them, Mike? You've switched to an Android.
And no, none of those things. And I'm so happy. As
Never
a clam.
received an emoji text from you, actually.
Yeah, you're not going to.
I was
Leo.
talking to my mom, and I turned on the emoji of my face. She says, "Stop it! What are you doing? Stop that!"
Why are you a talking pile of feces?
Yeah, what?
Oh wait,
Yes.
that's
She
quite
said, that
normal.
looks like
actually.
poop. And she said, "Stop it!" So
No, I mean, it's
innovation,
gimmicks.
Leo.
You know,
Innovation.
It's
Courage.
What they've added is, yes, courage. The courage in making you buy dongles that you immediately lose. And it's gimmicks like Face
So
ID.
there is,
and
especially among people like you, a certain amount of joy in this announcement that
I think
Apple's not going to be
joy.
quite as...
Joy is it's just like
Schadenfreude's the right
a sort
word.
of finally they're getting the message.
Finally.
I mean, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think that all of the success of Apple is due to one person, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just
there's
coasting
evidence.
after the post-Steve
I think
Jobs
there's
era.
evidence.
The
He
iPhone
was so good.
was Steve Jobs' other than the building, which is also amazing, the circular spaceship building. The iPhone, maybe arguably the iPad, but the iPhone was his last genius move to go into a whole. I was critical of it back in 2000, whatever.
7.
It was
Well,
brilliant.
before that, I was critical and said, "Oh, come on!"
I did the same thing. The
phone
worst
is
business.
so
You don't
hard.
want. I said the same thing. You don't want to get in that business.
Exactly.
It'll eat you
It's a
alive.
disaster. What a catastrophe.
And
but
to be fair, the first iPhone was a real dog apart from the user interface.
the vision of it all and the execution of it all over time was just
Absolutely
obviously
perfect.
killer.
Perfection.
And
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Schadenfreude thing, though. I don't think people are.
That is a
really-
German word for those who don't know. That means the shameful joy at the misfortune of others.
except for the shame part. The thing about that is I don't take any joy at a company doing poorly. I don't particularly care if Microsoft is better than Apple. What I do want to point out and cop to is that Apple fanboys being sad is fine by me. That probably brings me a little bit of joy because they've been banging this drum forever about how Apple's better than everyone else, even though it's not. It's great, but other companies are good too. And to see this happen is a bit of like, you see, they're immortal over a one Apple way or whatever. Because there's just people at a corporation. So the fanboys drive me nuts. Apple, I don't particularly care about. I'll use whatever PC is best. Currently, it's a Windows 10 gaming rig and this MacBook Pro. That's all I need.
Yeah.
But I don't care more than that. Just the people drive me nuts.
what's the German word for shameless joy?
The shameless joy.
joy.
I just looked up Schadenfreude. There is an English word that means the same thing, which is unusual because a lot of German words, there's no translation. It's epicaracy.
That's not quite as fun to say.
Epicaracy. I've never heard it. It comes from the Greek
Epicaracy.
epi, upon, kara, joy, and kakon, evil.
I don't see that catching on. I think we're going to stick with the German on this
I don't
one.
even want to make that the title of the TWiT episode because no one will remember it.
Epicaracy.